Before I before I start, I wanted to go back to, I think, our show and tell from 2 months ago. You might remember that cover. I assume that everybody will see it show up now. From Indochina to South Africa, to Transvaal. And there was a question regarding the 5 pence additional franking that had been affixed in Rocker Street in Johannesburg. And I wasn't sure if it was 5 pence for registration that was added there, or there was a mix of franking. And I contacted the South African Philatelic Society, and they were kind enough to reply that there was 1 pence for forwarding the mail and 4 pence for the registration. So we have a response to that question. Okay, and now we are gonna move to the topic of the day. So I think we decided to break this down in 2 presentations because there was a little bit too much material for just one meeting. So I'm going to go over, it's all together called, Bisect, Uncut, or badly perforated stamps, and it's an overview of group type varieties. I think since I joined the FCPS UK, you probably have realized my area of focus and passion is group type. Okay, so I basically go from 1892 until First World War, a little bit later on with some countries or some colonies, and the group type, also known as navigation of commerce or allegoric. And it's a very rich area of philately because those stamps were used in multiple places and for a relatively long time with changes in rates and things like that. So for today, I'm gonna talk about bisects, so stamps that were cut to change the value of the franking, okay, from a 20 cents into a 10 cents or a 30 cents into a 15 cent or centime. And we'll see that they do exist in quite a few areas. The second part of this talk will be in 4 weeks. So I think that's going to be May 16, if I'm not wrong. That's what we have agreed on because I cannot meet with you on May 23rd. So I'm going to start. I arranged this presentation by geographic area, and we're going to start with all of those places around Madagascar and Diego Suarez, Nosy and Juan, for example. No worries, I will not talk to you for an hour about the 1904 bisects from Madagascar. Okay, this is well documented. You can find them in most catalogs, and they're not as rare, in my opinion, as some of the covers I'm going to present to you. I mean, some of them are quite rare, that's for sure. There is some in Weimar, for example, but altogether, there are quite a few of those. There is also a huge amount of forgeries or bisects from 1904 that have been made after the fact with the old material from the post office by some not so kosher, kind of postal agents. So this talk will not go over those items. Okay. Still, I'm going to mention a couple just for reference, like this one here. You can see an envelope from Diego Suarez, Madagascar, 1904, to Lorient in Morbihan in Brittany, with a handwritten mention of the Corps d'Occupation of Madagascar. I have seen this one. I really don't know what to do with it, to categorize it as, forgery, weird item, fantasy, complaisance, because it makes no sense for me that you would go and cut a 10 centime here, and those are obviously probably the 2 halves, maybe not, but if you're going to put 15 cents, you have already a 5 centime stamp. That doesn't justify cutting 10 centime stamp to make 2 5 centimes. That's totally ridiculous for me. And plus, it seems that those stamps are already on a yellow paper that was put on top of a greenish envelope. So were those reused from some time, and then somebody tried to take advantage of the fact that they could cut stamps? I have no idea. This looks like a very fishy envelope, cover to me. But it's something that doesn't fit the typical category of those 1904 bisects. So I thought I would just start with this and say there is a lot of weird things that we're going to see in that presentation. Okay, all of the typical 1904, we know them. They have those glyphs, those mentions, affranchissement exceptionnel, faute de timbre, affranchissement spécial, faute de figurine, etc., etc. There is different variations. If you're interested in that, there are some very good studies from I think Jacques Desnon, from Colfra. So you can go and find some of that. Luc Monterrey also published not long ago, I think a couple of years back, a PDF that's available with Colfra around the cut stamps from Madagascar in 1904 and 1906. So there is a lot of information available in the philatelic literature already around those stamps. I'm still going to show you a second one, which is here from 30 centimes from Madagascar that was cut by half to make a 15 cents. And the cover was sent to Monsieur Le Mail de Beaufort, receveur des douanes. So there was a Mail de Beaufort, Le Mail de Beaufort in Madagascar, Manjunga at the time, who worked at the customs. It's a family that has been involved in customs for a long, long time. I think they came from Guadeloupe initially, or they might have worked in other countries in Africa. And then throughout the years, I guess the children of a custom officer worked with the customs as well. And then so you have a succession in the genealogy of the family, Le Mail de Beaufort, of employees of the French customs. And so, but what's interesting with this one is that it doesn't have that special mark, that should be, like you see on this, here's the affranchissement spécial faute de figurine. It apparently went through the mail. There are no other markings. So does that make it more, I don't know, significant, rare, interesting than the typical ones? I don't know. It's just one that I was able to effectively confirm that this is a valid recipient or addressee for this cover. So here you have it. So now we're going to move to something a little bit more interesting. We have a bisect 30 centimes from Diego Suarez with a 50 centimes red Diego Suarez as well, and then a 10 centimes black from Nocibé. That was addressed to Madame Bouvier-Gaz à Rive de Gier in the Loire department in France. It was forwarded to Lyon. So this is most likely philatelic. And I think it's probably fair to say that most of all of those covers are philatelic in nature, but they might have traveled through the mail. So that makes them still, they were accepted by the post office. They were delivered to the addressee. No, they're valid cover, and they're quite original. So there was a Mr. Bouvier-Gaz, probably the son of this Madame Bouvier-Gaz, who was employed by the Postal Service in Manongerie as of August 1899 or 1898, pardon, and who was also a postmaster in Mahanoro in January 1899. So the village of Manahoro is between Mananjeri and Tamatave on the eastern coast of Madagascar. And of course, it was not serviced by the ships that carried the mail to or from Tamatave. So you had to carry the mail by road, okay, by land. There was no road to Mananjeri, and then it will travel by boat or by land as well to Tamatave, whatever would make it arrive the fastest. So here we have probably a second weight letter in 99, still early, so not yet moved to the new rates, So it paid 50 centimes for the postage, and then 25 for the registration. We know it went through Manangari because of this weird looking cancel that we call in French caviardé, because all of the information about the city or location have been erased or appears in black today. And it's effectively from February 11, 99. It traveled to Tamatave. You have the cancel in the back on the 20th, so you can still see, from Manangari to Tamatave, a good 9 days in transit, and then it went to Ville de Gier in the Loire department before being forwarded to Lyon. So all of the marks are correct. Most likely, that letter traveled with the Irrawaddy steamer, although there is no mark to confirm that on the cover. But that's one of the most interesting one I have seen. So it's quite a good, good mix of stamps here. It's a little bit sad that the 50 centimes is a little bit damaged on this cover, but still a very interesting piece. Then we're going to advance a little bit in time from 1899. We'll go to 1901. And here I have found two covers from Diego Suarez. Two covers from Manangari again that were franked with stamps from Diego Suarez and Nocibe, a mix of those. Both of them probably were franked by the same person. You can see the handwritten mention here that says sufficient franking considering circumstances, affranchissement suffisant suivant circonstances, and the same signature. I'm not so sure, something an F Labrousse ou Labrousse. It's a little bit easier to read here. Same mention, and it's all a mix and match of small value stamps to pay the 15 centime rate. So we have here a band of 3 of Diego Suarez with a millésime. That's quite rare to actually have a millésime on a cover. The 2 cents from Nocibe, Monk's 1 centime, sorry, and Monk 1 centime here, which is achieved by cutting a 2 centime from Diego Suarez. Interestingly enough, on this cover, we have, and again, 3 of Diego Suarez in 4 centimes, a little bit damaged. That's sad. And this time it's a 2 centime from Nocibe that has been cut here. So all of those stamps were valid for postage in Madagascar at the time. So maybe that's what the postman had available. There was no 15 centimes left. We don't know. I have not found anything that indicated in the literature that there was a shortage of stamps of the typical 10, 15, 5 centime values. But in any case, all of them are properly franked. You have in one case also, which is quite original, you have a Manangari cancel of September 6th. And here you have also a Manangari cancel, but it's a numeral 50 of September 9. Why the change of obliteration mark 3 days apart? It's hard to say. This one was sent, seemed to be an official letter. It's hard to see maybe, but this was, I don't recall, le gérant de la caisse d'avance, effected from the whatever place de Manangari. So this is an official Manangari cancel from some person working in finance. And it goes to the Ministère des Finances in Paris. So it looks relatively like an official cover. So I assume it's legit in terms of franking, and it went through the mail. There is the transit cancel in the back. And this, I think this one is a distribution in Paris eventually. So they look totally legit to me. But there's only 2 I have seen with vertical bisect from Diego Suarez and Nocibe like this. That might not have been actually philatelic. So I leave it to your to your personal opinion. But both of them quite interesting, quite original. The next one in the area, I will apologize for the bad quality of the scan. It's something I got from an auction site. That cover was sold back in 2010, I think, by David Feldman in Switzerland. I had bid on it, and I didn't bid high enough. That's why I will have regrets the rest of my life that I didn't put an extra 50 euros. But it's also quite interesting because this one, obviously, the 5 centime stamp was bisect in diagonal. I can't say really what the sender tried to achieve, because obviously it is clear that the post office taxed the letter and say it was a triple weight, trois port here, 3 ports, triple weight letter. So it should have been most likely franked 30 centime, 3 times 10. No credit was given for the 5 centime that was cut at all. Okay, and so the letter was taxed twice the amount of postage that was missing, so 20 centime here when it arrived in Oran. I don't know if the person thought that by cutting a 5 centime stamp and putting 2 halves, they would kind of fool the postal service that it was like 10 centime and it would make the right postage, or they didn't have any and they said, okay, they will still charge me, for some tax upon arrival. I don't know. It's typically very hard to know what the person had in mind, but you have the correct usage by the postal service to effectively, the one thing that's incorrect is that those stamps were canceled in Mayotte. Normally they should not have been, and they should have been just, the postman, the postal agent should have put that square around them, or circle them and put zeros around them. But everything else is correct. The fact that they mentioned how much tax was to be charged, they taxed the letter here. They added the reason why. So it's a triple weight letter. It's a beautiful piece. It's a little bit damaged. All the stamps here. So that's also maybe not an exhibition piece, but it's definitely a very interesting cover from 1908, mailed from Anjouan with the Mayotte Independence Council. So we're going to move from Madagascar a little bit, up northwest and go to the area of Senegal and French Sudan. And I typically put on the maps here, you see those red dots, that kind of refers to the different locations of the covers that I will talk about in the rest of the presentation. So there will be some from Odien, there will be some from Gaoua, some Saint Louis, and this one I don't remember which city, but we'll get there in a minute. So the first one, Ed knows this one very well. It was in his collection. It now has its home in Portland, Oregon, and it is actually probably what we think is the only known or recorded example of postal fraud with group type stamps, where I think in this case the intent was quite obvious. The sender put 2 bisects side by side. There is half of a 4 centime here, placed next to 1/2 of a 2 centime, to kind of make, reconstruct back a full stamp with light colors. Apparently it went through the mail. I don't know if the person had, it seems very weird to me still that somebody would want to do this kind of fraud when the letter was sent to an agent of the DSL, so the Dakar Saint Louis Railroad. So normally you wouldn't do those kind of things with, let's say, commercial mail. There's probably not much to be gained. but it remains an interesting use of bisects, which was not obvious. I think when Ed bought that one, it was not clear that it was actually two halves side by side, but that's definitely a very, very interesting cover. Everything seems right about it. So that's a very interesting piece with the cancer from Saint-Louis, so on the coast of Senegal. The next one, that's the city I was missing, a letter from Sempi in French Sudan. That's addressed to the post manager in Badoumbe. And it is franked with half of a 30 centimes from Soudan Français to pay the 15 centime rate. So both towns today, Sempi, Badoumbe, are part of Mali, what we know as Mali today. But throughout the years, they were Senegal, they were Sudan, from French Sudan. They have been in Senegal and Niger, or all Senegal and Niger. That was an area of the French colonies that has been where the boundaries were redrawn and changed, and names were assigned over time. So that there is also a very interesting area of collecting of French colonies in there, where you can see the evolution of the colonial system and the way that certain areas were reattached together or broken down and mix and match. Maybe not the most brilliant part of the French history, but definitely something quite interesting for the specialists and the historians. So was this one, again, you can ask, is this like a, hey, dear friend from the postal service, I'm going to send you an interesting letter that you can keep for your collection, or not. And so it's like complaisance, a certain professional courtesy that from one postal person, maybe the postal manager in Sempi sending a letter to his buddy in Badoumbe, say, hey, instead of putting a normal 15 centime stamp, I'm going to cut a 30 centime, I'm going to, cancel it, mail it. That's going to be a fantastic letter for a philatelist. That might be the intent. I have no idea. But the fact remained, it probably travels through the post, and it's a very nice piece. And I think that one, I think it was also in Ed's collection. It was sold at the Spring sale in 2019, and I ended up paying quite a few a few more euros 6 months later to buy it from Luc Dunham. So key lesson for me on this one: buy it the first time you see it. Don't try to buy it from the person who's going to resell it. If it's a merchant, it's not going to work. So I know we're going to move to an area that probably most of you are familiar with, because there has been some writings about those, the Gaoua bisects. Ed has penned a few articles in the French and Colony Philatelist in the US about those. There have been some mention of them also in the COFRA bulletin. I'm really not sure why the main catalogs, seem to ignore those bisects. There is full section around the 1904 from Madagascar. There is absolutely nothing at all around that small series of bisects in Gaoua in 1908. But we see them. I should have put probably some quote, around regularly, but you manage to see some of those at auctions on a regular basis. And what I have put here is a couple of fragments, to illustrate the fact that some of the stamps were cut in diagonal and some were cut in, vertically. And we'll see basically why that is the case. Here I have the text of a postcard. I got this from a scan from an auction sale, where the person sends and say, "Hey, Robert, is the stamp collection almost complete? I'm sending you today a stamp, a cut stamp from Gaoua, canceled on March 8th. On that day, we were stamps of 20 centime and etc. were missing, and so no, the 10 centime stamp were short and we don't have any, and so we cut the 20 centime stamps. This operation was made officially, and the service authenticated those bisects. They are very rare because there are only about 20 of those stamps in circulation. The philatelic journals mention them, so I will think about you for more stamps, one from your cousin. So an interesting card which gives a little bit of credence and okay, those do exist for sure. That was effectively, so I think that was an old sale from maybe who was selling one of those fragments with the postcard, which makes for a nice, I would say, a nice combo for an exhibit. And here is more information. I think that was published in the Le Collectionneur de Timbre Poste in June of 1908, where they explain that on the 2nd of March, the day of the mail was to depart from Gaoua, the local indigenous postal agent was without stamps of 1, 2, 4, 5, and 10 centime. That is everything that could make a franking of 10 centime. There was a lot of mail that day with a lot of different covers. He was able to frank some with the stamps that were remaining, and the remaining covers were franked with 20 centime stamps cut into diagonally. And this operation was made in presence of most of the European personnel. And then they explained that the postmaster or the postal agent couldn't forecast that he would be, going short of stamps, because the day before, an officer had bought for about 15 francs in stamps to send under cover instead of a postal order, because the Gaoua Post could only process money order for the colonies. They could not process anything to France. It's very, I'm going to still say there that it's very unclear to me why the officer who wanted to send money to France, instead of buying, 15 stamps at 1 franc or 30 at 50 centime or something like that, or stamp at 25 centime, has bought the entire stock of 1, 2, 4, 5, and 10 centime stamps. That makes for a much bigger number of stamps. I'm not so sure why they would have done that. Nobody really knows. And here they finally indicate that the amount of stamps that were cut maybe is 40, maybe less. And what I did here is a table with all of the stamps, the day of franking, the day that the cover was sent, and where it was sent, the city and the name of the recipient. So obviously a few of those covers are most likely philatelic in nature as well. So people might have realized it's weird, because people don't realize just, oh my God, this is a fantastic day. We have bisects from Gaoua. Let's immediately notify the Office Philatelique in Paris. Let's notify Mr. Maury in Paris. Let's notify Monsieur Le Maire, also, in Paris, because those will be very, very interesting. And then most everything else has been sent to military personnel in different places nearby, in Dibougou, Koulikoro, etc. And this column here indicates the half of the stamps that's being used. So the little green triangle, that means that the bottom left half of the stamp is used for franking. So we have, as you can see, mostly bottom half, one top half here. And it seems that the postal agent realized that when you cut the stamps, if you cut in diagonal, you can't really use anything of the upper half, because there is no indication of the country anymore. It's missing, and that probably renders the stamps invalid. And so he used only mostly, on March 2nd and even on, the bottom halves, and probably realized, darn, when I do this, I lose the second half that becomes unusable. And then he decided, on all the subsequent days to cut the stamps vertically. So you always see half of the name of the country, Soudan français is broken, Sou and Franc, and then Don and C. But you know that this is from French Sudan. So those stamps probably in his mind remain valid. That's a working theory. I also believe that we should have, since apparently those covers were mostly saved by philatelists, by stamp collectors, we should have mostly parity between the right and the left half, but that's not the case. I have seen 6 right halves of stamps and only 2 left. So that remains to be seen. There might be more of those covers in the market, in some collection somewhere that I haven't seen yet. So I will just present them here quickly. So those are 3 of the letters from March 2nd. This one to Monsieur Marceau from the philatelic office in Paris. You see Gaoua of Senegal and Niger, 2 March 2, 1908. Here is a cut stamp, and you can see there is absolutely no, you can tell which colony that stamp is from. So we know it's probably from Soudan français because it's probably, the top half of one of those, but it doesn't show. Here it's obvious, and with the color and a little bit of the 20, that this is half of a 20 centime stamp from Soudan français. So as a postal person, you might accept it, especially if the person stamps it and cancels it from, from the original, from the office of origin. Then it goes through the mail. It's okay. It hasn't been marked taxed. It has been accepted, canceled. It's going to go through the rest of its journey. So here, this one was sent registered. You can see here the Monsieur Pêche is a. So also, was there a reason to send 2 letters to Monsieur Pêche on the same day? At Diebougou, the handwriting, maybe here is not the same between those 2, so maybe I accept that, but the handwriting here and here seems relatively the same. So there is also a little bit of questions about the sender of those letters. Was it one person who sent most of it? It looks like it. You see that the especially the M is typically very, very similar. When you see Casal, Caron, the C seems also quite the same. The fact that the city is always underlined is also maybe typical of, I don't know, one person. Obviously, those 2 here were sent by the same person, but to 2 different people, but both of them, Monsieur Caron, Monsieur Casal in Diebougou. Was it one person sending stamps to his friends and then, with the intent of recovering those letters, upon going to Diebougou the next day? Who knows? But there is quite a few of those, so they're more rare than the 1904 bisects from Madagascar, but they're obviously more frequent than the other bisects we have seen up to now. Here is some of the 16th of March, to Monsieur Le Marchand, and all of those now are vertical bisects. Okay. This is also military. So you see, most of those go to military personnel, but that's also normal because in these places, a few Europeans in Gao at the time were mostly military people from the local garrison in the area. And the handwriting again is quite consistent, though my guess is that it's the same sender. And so there was somebody who was sending quite a lot of mail that day. It might have been the same officer who bought the 15 franc stamps the morning before. Who knows? And here we go to the final day of usage of those stamps. So I don't know why I put back here one from March 2nd. And then you have from March 16 and 30, So this is probably the last day of usage known. So basically between the 2 of March and the 30th of March, we have those bisects. I haven't been able to find covers stamped with a normal 10 centime, let's say in the month of April. So if somebody in their collection has such a cover, please send me a scan, because I would like, effectively, it would be interesting to see, okay, that we had the 10 centime used for franking, in February, and we had it as well in April, and that maybe some of those cover might have been, saved by philatelists. Obviously, the one from the month of March, a good chunk of them have been saved and kept, in collections. So there is a lot of material available around this. And I think the other item I was interested in was the numbers on the registered ones, because you can see this one seems to have a 70 or 76. And if you might not have noted that, but here you have a 60. And then there was probably, I think on this one, there seems to be a 58 here. So 58, 60, 70, I wonder what happened to the remaining, if they were, registering those letters in order with numbers that incremented by 1. Did they increment by 2? I don't know, but there might be quite a large number of such covers in the market, but I have not seen them. But that's also another area for future research, to try to effectively locate where are all the remaining, registered covers, because I don't see how you would jump from 58 and 60 to 70 or 76 here over, a 30-day period. And we have managed to locate the initial and the end one of the series, but there is a gap in the middle of over 10 covers that we haven't seen. They should exist somewhere. That's my hypothesis. Okay, one more in the area of Africa with a letter in Senegal. Well, actually, so the letter is sent from Côte d'Ivoire, from Odienne, but it is franked with a cut 20 centimes from Senegal. That's probably okay, given the historical mention I made earlier of places in that area moving from one country to the other, depending on some rearrangement of the administrative colonies. Odienne is quite that part of Côte d'Ivoire is relatively close to the eastern border, if you want, of Senegal, of the area of Senegal. So it is sent to the chef de poste, so probably to a military recipient. 10 centimes is a normal rate for that time in 1910. So maybe the postal agent in Odienne, was okay with having a military coming from Senegal franking his stamps, his cover to another military personnel with a stamp from Senegal instead of Côte d'Ivoire, and accepted it. I'm not so sure. That's my hypothesis here as well. And it was obviously a local mail, from Odienne to Odienne. So that's a little bit. That's a possibility. I don't know, or it's purely philatelic. That's also an option. It's very hard to tell. But so we have, that big chunk of bisects from Gaoua in 1908, and then we have seen then 3 other bisects in the area over the years. Let's now move to Asia and Indochina. So here we'll see a few in the northern part of the colony in Tonkin, near Hanoi, and then we'll have some from Saigon. So let's get started. So this one here, Very interesting cover as well, franked with one of the other example of a vertical half, the top left side of the stamp, making it impossible to say that's a 30 centime from Indochina. The color tells us it's a 30 centime, but there is no indication of the colony. So I don't know what the person was trying to do there. It was sent to Monsieur Maury, commercial attaché at the French consulate in Shanghai. Is there a relationship between this Monsieur Maury and the Maury that was a well-known French dealer in Paris? I don't know. If somebody has information about where Monsieur Maury spent his time, and if he ever worked as a commercial attaché for the consular in Shanghai, please let me know. But it's almost a too good to be true cover to some extent, because it has a mark from a boîte mobile, so it was mailed in one of those, like country, postal boxes somewhere eventually. Then it was franked in Dapco. The person again franked it, canceled it, which is not the typical way that the post office would have proceeded. It was marked with a T for indicating that it had to be taxed, but no mention was made of the amount to be taxed. And then when it arrived in Shanghai, in China, the French post office there taxed it 50 cents for twice the 25 cents that was missing, because apparently no value was given to this stamp at all. But that doesn't seem like the proper way of working by the French or Indo-Chinese postal service. So I have a little bit my doubts on this one. But it's also, as I mentioned earlier, probably one of the 2 or 3 I have seen where you have three if we count the one from Saint Louis with a fraud with the 2 centime bisect to make a 4 centime, but with a top half. It's extremely rare to see those bisects on covers from the colonies. All right, now we're going to move to still in Indochina, Monsieur Obscur, professor at the school in Jadin. This person is an interesting character because I think he was extremely amateur of cut stamps. I have seen many letters with bisects that do not justify using a bisect at all, but that's what he did. Why? I can tell. I think maybe he liked maybe he was himself a stamp collector. Maybe he enjoyed the cosmetic aspect of cutting the stamps on leather. So you can see the one on the left here is sent from Hanoi in December 1902, on the 11th of December, most likely sent by Monsieur Obscur to his mother in Charenton. Registration, the franking should have been 15 plus 25, so the 40 centime here are totally sufficient to cover the postage and the registration. And then he added next to it 10 centime cut here. Okay, it's pointless, useless, doesn't pay for anything, but I guess the postal service there, the postman in Hanoi just canceled it and said, okay, well, why do I care? It's not needed. The guy decided to massacre a stamp for nothing, fine. And so that letter went through the mail. I think at the time, Monsieur Obscur was a member of the French delegation to the exposition in Hanoi, the colonial exhibit in Hanoi. And that's probably as well where he sent this letter to himself. Okay, that is the same person. That this was sent to Monsieur Obscur, but most likely by himself while he was in Hanoi for the colonial exhibit or exposition here, and he put on it a bunch of 10 centime stamp cut in all directions, and it's like slicing and dicing in any way you can. And I think none of those was actually stamped or canceled in Hanoi in November. Okay, you see a lot of cancellation because they're all from the 15th of December. So those were used properly. So the post office canceled, the letter here and put the tax triangle on it, send it to Jardin. In Jardin, the people just say, oh no, return it, general delivery in Hanoi, where, Monsieur Obscur is going to retrieve that letter. It traveled through Saigon, of course, and went to Jardin, and then it was sent back. And when it arrived in Hanoi on December 15, it was taxed 30 centimes, here. And all of the stamps on the front were canceled on that same day. So that's a normal postal usage of a totally irregular and weird cover. And for me, that's typical of what this person was doing with stamps. I have also seen another letter that used mostly Grasset type stamps, where he had cut like quarters of stamps and half of stamps in all direction, all vertical or horizontal. So he was, I'm not going to say he was known to do this, but definitely it seems to be his habit that it would make those cut stamp. One little comment about this person, this Monsieur Obscur. So he was initially his wife at the time, remarried after he died. I think I don't recall exactly what year, but and his widow remarried a man called Donadieu, and they had 2 children together, including one that you might know because her name is Marguerite Duras. So her pen name is Marguerite Duras, a French writer who has written a lot of stories around Indochina. So there is a little bit of a connection here between this person indirectly and a French, well-known French novelist or writer. Apparently, though, Flavio Obscur, married in France, and his wife joined him in Indochina. Monsieur Donadieu has brought his wife also to Indochina. Both lost their spouses and later, married, and from that union came Marguerite Duras and a few other children. So that's for the little story about the story. Let's now, I think we're getting close to the end of this. So we have also one from Oceania. And this one is also quite original. I have seen it years back on a website. It was there as a reference piece. So we have a registered letter from the Marquesas Islands in Taiohae that is sent on November 15, 1913. I think it's hard to read, but the name is something propriétaire à, I don't know the place exactly, and it seems to be Hérault, so a French department near the Mediterranean coast around Montpellier. And it's franked what appears to be 35 centimes. Okay, we have 3 5-centime stamps. Then we have a 75 centimes that has been cut in half, and there is hardly visible here a small 20 that has been typed on top to make 20 plus 15, 35, which would be the correct rate, 10 centimes for postage and 25 centimes for registration. It has on the back cancelled from Papeete on December 16, so about 1 month later. I don't know really also what to make of this one. Could be a complete fabrication, could be a unique item. I still, again, it's all not clear to me why you would need to use 3 5-centime stamp and overprint the 75 bisect with 20. If you're going to cut the 75 stamp, then you get something like 37.5 centime in value, which gives you 2.5 centime extra for the postage that you need. So you don't really need to use the additional 5. You can just cut this one and say, hey, that's 37.5. I already cut that stamp. No, let's go and use it. And that would work. So here, on top of cutting the stamp, we change the value. You could as well achieve the same by taking a 5-centime stamp and overprinting it 20, and then putting a little, note or franking paid in cash or anything like this if you didn't have enough stamps, especially coming from a small office, postal office like Hawaii. So the truth is there are multiple examples everywhere of use of stamps that have been cut. Those bisects, you find them in the US, you find them in Guatemala, you find them everywhere. So it seemed to be a normal practice eventually, if the postal agent was not able to make the franking that was required, to take a stamp, cut it, and then make sure you get to the right value. But I don't see any kind of consistency in the way this was achieved. And normally the French are known to regulate a lot of things, so I would have expected that there would have been some sort of notice from the government, from the Ministry of Colonies or the direction of the Postal Service. Say, hey, if you need to do this, take a stamp of double the value and cut it by half vertically, and then so I haven't seen anything like that. So this is what we have. So in summary, okay, so as I just mentioned, okay, it's a relatively common practice across the world, but it seems to be still quite rare if you look at the group stamps. And I have only basically here 25 examples, that I was able to document from 1895 to 1913. So over a 20-year almost period, there is maybe a bisect and a quarter per year, which is not really much. Of course, there is probably more than that. And if we include the 1904 bisects, there is like hundreds more. But you can see that we go very fast from a few hundreds known in the category of the Madagascar bisects, of maybe like 15 to 20, possibly from the Gaua bisects in 1908. I have seen 15 examples. I'm sure that more exist. And then we have a few examples from, Senegal, Indochina. What about the rest of the colonies? Yeah. My view is that if that has been done somewhere, it has been done somewhere else. And shortage of stamps have existed right and left in the colonies. Of course, we have seen different ways that they dealt with it. In Réunion in 1901, I think they used postage due stamps for franking locally. We have seen as well some different ways I think in Guadeloupe or Saint-Pierre. But I'm looking for more of those different kind of bisect on cover or fragment. And new items typically appear. When I proposed to Chris to give you this presentation, I didn't have this item. This one, I think Ed pointed me to it recently, with a 2-centime vertical bisect from Obok as well in 1901. So when you think you have seen it, maybe not all, but you struggle to find more of those items, and then suddenly one appear and you get all excited, say, oh yeah, good, another country with a bisect. So that makes for a pretty interesting area of research on this kind of stamps from the group type. And I think that's the end of this presentation. So if you have any question. Now is the time. Or we can maybe start the other one on the second series of varieties. You tell me.
Actually, Ed here, Loïc, I just have a couple of, well, one comment, two comments. On the Senegal bisect, the dealer who sold it to me did not see the two halves of the 2 centime and 4 centime stamps.
Yeah.
I did not see it. I was just checking my database as you were speaking. I paid $15 for this cover, thinking it was a 5 centime printed matter rate used locally in Saint Louis. And I got home, and those days I used to keep index cards, 3x5 index cards. That was my database. And that evening I was writing this cover up, and my son, who was probably about 12 years old, happened to come by, and he's looking at what I was doing, and he said to me, "Dad, there's something wrong with that 4 centime stamp." And that's when I looked at it and saw that it was 2 halves, and just jumped with joy that happened. The last one you sold actually was also the last one you showed from Obac was also in my collection. I got that from one of the smaller French dealers, and again, it wasn't particularly expensive. There was no push to get it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was actually surprised because I bought this cover from Senegal at the Spring sale.
Yeah.
And I think it went for like 250 euros, which maybe from 50, to 250 over 30 years, and maybe not a great return of investment. But I was surprised it didn't go for more than that, because it's definitely a very original cover.
Well, in that sale, I had a lot of stuff I bought for 400 euros that sold for 200 euros. So
yeah, there was really some weird results.
Well, no, I think the market I was part of the very high market in group type, and when I sold in 19, the market was quite a bit down.
Yeah,
I don't think there's the interest there was, especially here in the United States. I don't see a lot of French area collectors.
That's okay. There's less competition for me. But I think so, the covers I've presented today, I'm gonna venture about like 2/3 of them are in my collection. And the remaining third would cost me an arm and a leg if I was able to find them. But it's really very, very interesting area around the group type and the usage of bisects. There is probably a lot still that need to be researched, and more pieces need to be found. But I enjoy that process.
Does anybody else have any questions? I'm just asking. Chris, I'd like to share a couple of items that one is group type that Loïc didn't show. I don't know if I can do it properly or not. Can we give it?
Stop sharing and Ed, you have the floor.
Yeah, of course we can. Yeah, that'd be very nice. Yes, looking at that last one, you could just see the colonies was not lined up properly on the 2 stamps.
Yeah, my conclusion was that the Dakar post office in the year of that cover was probably not well lit, so no one saw it. And the show I was at and my house, again, it wasn't a very, very bright, wonderful light. It was a ballroom light at the show, and my room had a couple of incandescent lights. And I wasn't expecting to see it. I was expecting to see the 4 centime, and that's exactly what I saw.
Yes.
And my son, who knew nothing, so he didn't know what to expect, and he saw the difference and
Yeah,
color.
that top
between the
left
two.
show, you can see on the top left, that's where it really shows when he hasn't got the letters properly. Right, you're going to show a couple of items, are you?
Yeah, I'm not, okay. Let's get,
What date is that?
okay. Loïc, this is the bisect of the 4-son team to make a 2-son team on a wrapper
Oh,
that I had in my collection. Can everyone see that?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Come on.
And
You have
and
a scan of this one? I need to check. Maybe you send it to me. I need to.
oh yeah, I sent it to you, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the interesting thing is it's to Dr. Volskov, who of course was mentioned in by Luke yesterday in the Madagascar talk. Dr. Volskov was a German zoologist who gathered animal, mineral, and plant samples throughout Madagascar, and he used to send them back to his fellow scientists in Europe, who would then study them, and they would write papers. But he was also a bit of a philatelist, and he occasionally made philatelic pieces. And this is during what I call the bisectomania period in Madagascar. And he bisected a 4 to make a 2, put it on a wrapper, and sent it to himself in Tuileries. And it looks totally fabricated, but when you look inside the wrapper, when you spread it open, there's about a 2x2 piece of some printed matter item in there. So it looks like there was a piece of printed matter on it. And the second cover, oops, that is the, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not doing this. Okay, here it is. The second cover is a bisect of the Zebu issue of Madagascar. This is similar to what things Loïc had shown. The interesting thing is it's from Saint-Marie de Madagascar. They bisected the 15, so that gives you 7.5. They marked it printed matter, and it was sent on to Kassel in Germany. And at the St. Marie post office, they struck it with a T in triangle. You can see it went via the packet, and then up top at the left, it's got the arrival cachet of Kassel. You notice it's marked 40 though, and let me see if I can get to the. And here's the back, and you see it went through Diego, and it was forwarded to Strasbourg. But you see the sender here is Dr. Volskov once again. This is his commercial firm that he used as a permanent address in Tamatave. And he was sending this bisect to a friend in Germany. It was forwarded to Strasbourg. And what did the Germans do with it? They totally ignored the franking, okay, the 7.5 centimes. The letter was sealed, and it was charged 40 pfennig due, which is double the 20 pfennig rate. So that's another interesting use of a bisect, though it's not group type, but it is done by Dr. Volskov. Yeah. So I've always enjoyed that.
That might give some more like let's say most of those covers were created by a philatelist for their own collections in a certain way. I mean, they're made for purpose. Some of them do travel through the post and they're accepted. Some of them get taxed. There is different ways for the postal service to deal with this. And they have survived, from 1900 to today. And that's amazing. And mostly they survive because they have been stored away in stamp collections, and people actually care for them because they are quite original.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing with Volskov is I probably had about 10 letters that were real, that were part of his business in Madagascar, and contain all sorts of business details about what he was doing. Those are genuine. So he was on both sides of the issue. Plus, he had to use the parcel post system we have no indication of that because he sent all of these samples back to Europe. I mean, he was sending rocks and dried plants and dried animal material. And I was actually in Washington, and I looked up some of his articles, and they're actually quite good. He partnered with very, very good people in Europe, and they published papers on what they were discovering in the Madagascar plants, animals, and minerals. So it was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, look what we have there, Loïc.
I know this.
That's another story, guys. Maybe
Another day.
I'm just trying to close this program out. I can't do it. All right. All right. I don't know how to get out of this now.
Just stop sharing and then you can figure it out on your own.
Well, once I close down the program, I've lost the stop share. I've lost the stop. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Thank you for that, Nick. Thank you very much.
To conclude this discussion on Bisect, if you have any in your collection, uncover or fragments from the group type, please be kind and send me a scan because I keep adding to that collection and that kind of database of items.
Well, I suppose in those days in the colonies, they didn't have much else to do in the evenings, did they? So probably sat there committing all these strange concoctions. Very interesting. Thank you very, very much, Loïc. That was a lovely presentation.
You're welcome.
Has anybody else got any questions? If not, now Loïc's second part will be on the 16th of May. I've changed the date because of previous commitments, but I'll send another reminder out, plenty of time there.
I don't have that many meetings at 6:30 in the morning. I have all, and for some reason, one of my colleagues in the UK booked me for work on the 23rd at 6:30 in the morning. And like, this is a one day in the month, but I have something else to do. So you were kind enough to arrange, and so we'll meet on the 16th instead.
No, we'll do the 16th. It'll be okay. I was sent a note round. So.
Yeah.
Another reminder.
And the next one will be around all of the perforation varieties that we can see on.
Well, it's very interesting. It's amazing how many there are. I mean, I collect France. You don't see that bisects largely there, but the colonies, they're all over the place, aren't they? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very, very much, Loïc. We'll let you get on with the rest of your day now.
Yep. You too.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Bye, Loïc. I'll be in touch.
Oh yeah, you bet. Take care.
Okay, then. Thank you very much. I'll stop recording now.